Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting Propagandacast with me, your host, Imperial Dane, defender of the fatherland, hero of the Reich, here to provide you with more glorious propaganda and, of course, a bit of knowledge and learning in the ways of company of heroes, and perhaps also a bit of entertainment. Who knows? It could even be that. And we are having today a 1 versus 1 on what it's called. Oh yes, Industrial Riverbed, the place with the crashed truck right into the river. Poor Opel Blitz. It shall not be joining in the rally. No, today we're having a 1 versus 1 as I've already said. Rather nice map, sort of divided by the river, which rather creates an interesting feature. Lots of crossing points though, and some high yield fuel points in either corner, sort of cut off by strategic points. Other points as well, sort of closer to, but lots of strategic points at rather nasty places. Rather good points for harassment as always. Of course, question is, how will this sort of play into things, among other things? Victory points on a sort of nice line through the center, and a few buildings scattered about here, although nothing hugely vital. Interesting about that building, actually, never sort of thought about it. Anyhow, who shall be fighting? Well, here in the eastern corner we are seeing Gpo2 of the 9th SS, a Kampfgruppe sent off to fight the British, as this is set in Operation Market Garden somewhere in Holland, to see the windmills, where the British 30th Corps is marching onwards. And who shall be fighting? Well, it looks like the Irish Guards under DauleDK, our friend from Denmark. And in fact, let's get right to it. Brenke on the way. Good start there. No, instead he's going for an infantry section right off the bat. That's actually quite interesting. I wonder why he's going for a second infantry section. Schwimmwagen looks like it has something in mind. Actually, it's not going straight for the strategic points, so might be going for some resources. Munitions by the looks of things. Shall we be seeing further Schwimmwagens, or perhaps some Panzer Grenadiers coming out of that headquarters. Panzer Grenadiers we go. Ready to fight for the Reich. Glory, honor, fatherland, and Bratwurst. Anyway, reconnaissance section securing the strategic points right off the edge. And infantry section popping out. Second one on this go. And apparently it's not packing up quite as of yet, so we might be seeing a Brenke before that. And there we go, securing that point with the Panzer Grenadiers. No, they ignore it as well. Quite interesting. Looks like he's perhaps hoping to sort of create a link between these points, using the Schwimmwagen to take the points that take longer time, and strategic points which take the least amount of time to actually capture and of course decapture. He's using the Panzer Grenadiers for, and that's also one of the reasons why, well, strategic points are the usual points of harassment, because they can be done so fast. A small bit of discussion right there between the two about the Panzer Elite, it seems. Strategic point secured. Munitions point secured as well. We'll of course have to see where this goes. Bren carrier on the way. And then packing it up. From where though, I cannot say. And there we go, the Bren carrier is ready to serve King George. Panzer Grenadiers continue the hunt for resources. Looks like we are seeing 3 Panzer Grenadier teams on the field as of yet. The Bren carrier is ready, could perhaps be linking up with some infantry to give them some extra mobility. We shall have to see. Of course, infantry sections without supervision in unfriendly territory tends to move a lot more reluctantly, and there we go, picked up by the Bren carrier and ready to move about on the, well, not so much on their own, but more self-propelled, I suppose. Advancing towards the center, spotting some Panzer Grenadiers, and these Panzer Grenadiers will not be in a good situation against those British troops and the Bren carrier, which charges onwards through the roads. Could be doing, yes, he's going for a bit of harassment, I think. No, he's, what is he going for? Come on, Dahl. Decide. Wait, there we go. Popping down to the strategic point. And taking in, of course, British troops in the Bren carrier can't see his points, although they do so at a slight disadvantage again. But still, strategic points are the points faster to take, so of course they can do it pretty swiftly nonetheless. Panzer Grenadiers moving into counterattack, but I doubt it will be enough. And looks like Gpo2 and his 9th SS Kampfgruppe is making a slight mistake here. He's spreading out his troops. And of course now he's finally having to react, but at the same time though this point has been cut off, thus leaving most of this beyond the control of the Panzer Elite, of the SS, the Waffen SS more specifically. Bren carrier taking quite a bit of damage from the Panzer Grenadiers and forced to retreat most swiftly post haste, and looks like the headquarters command truck has it up right here. securing the fuel. Brenker doing a bit of harassment right there. Opening up on the Schwimmwagen and buttoning it down. My goodness, that's rather sneaky, although the Schwimmwagen, by sheer dint of being a Schwimmwagen, swims away. Looks like no. What? Come on. No, wait, it makes it out of there, and Panzer Grenadiers are leading the assault. No Gewehr 43s, though, as of yet. Rather interestingly, he's saving all his munitions for something. Brenker forced away, though it did succeed in doing a bit of harassment right there. And Schwimmwagen going for the strategic point. A third infantry section, rather interesting. Although not unexpected, I suppose. No lieutenant as of yet, though.
Bloody hell, seeing that flag raise is choking me up.
And a bit of choking up on some of the troops' behalf as they see that flag getting raised. Nothing unusual there. Kampfgruppe company going up for Gpo2. Panzer staying southwards, some staying about in the center. Question, of course, will he be going for the armored car rush, or will he be having something else in mind, perhaps something a bit more versatile? Infantry section coming on fire as Panzer Grenadiers are advancing. And looks like the Panzer Grenadiers are slightly worse off, or what? I cannot see. It's a bit difficult since they're both moving about. Both heading for cover, but looks like the Panzer Grenadiers are having the worst end of it since they're taking the most damage, while the infantry section barely has taken any. And the Brenker continues its work right here, although it is awfully damaged, and if found and focused down, it could end up very badly. Panzer Grenadiers sort of hanging about here. And looks like a reconnaissance section is heading in here to do a bit of harassment as well. Very sneaky. Panzer Grenadiers finished with the Kampfgruppe company. And looks like he's not going straight for the armored cars. Instead, he's going for something from the Kampfgruppe company. Could be an infantry half could be an armored half could be Panzer 6. Could be anything. But something is going on. Panzer Grenadiers are slightly ill-disposed. These are trying to cross here, but now the other chap standing about in the open trying to take a point and getting engaged. While the infantry section is in cover, this is not good for the Panzer Grenadiers, and they're forced away, while the others are attacking again across open ground. I mean, this fellow doesn't seem quite to understand how you attack and not attacking. Generally, attacking just across open ground against an enemy in cover is not necessarily always going to end up well, unless you have some very heavy firepower. And these chaps don't. They're actually going to take quite a bit of damage. There we go, one Panzer Grenadier down. The others are still there, but they're awfully wounded. Infantry section, though, suffers one loss, and someone vanishes into the riverbed, never to be seen again until much later. Kampfgruppe company is still flashing. Only one Panzer Grenadier team on the field.
Ready for orders.
And the British just seizing territory wherever they go. Defensive operations is up for the headquarters, thus giving a bit of healing and recuperation for abilities. And looks like tank busters have been prepared. That is, the Panzer upgrade is ready. So of course we shall have to see how this go with the Panzerjägern.
Send your message.
Schwimmwagen is still sort of hanging about, not entirely sure what to do. Brenker doing a bit of harassment, right? Just taking away points, not finishing to take them completely, it seems. Panzer Grenadier assault going through there. Reconnaissance section moving away. DauleDK not feeling like risking it. At the same time, it looks like he's finally going for a field support truck, but having caught quite a bit of infantry and the Brenker and an officer, by the looks of things. And there we go, using the lieutenant in the Brenker to sort of create a mobile command vehicle. Not a bad idea, but the Panzer Schreckers make that a slightly great idea. But the command Bren, I suppose we could call it, just moves on to begin seizing points right there. Sneaky little bugger. And looks like the Panzer Grenadiers are moving northwards to meet that threat, but at the same time he's making a bit of a mistake here. He's leaving this area open because, again, that's where most of the British infantry is. But apparently he feels that one Brenker with the lieutenant is threat enough to move all of his forces up there, including what looks like an infantry attack. No, he's moving towards the center, hoping to press the advantage elsewhere rather than running straight into the wall of the British. This is good. I mean, sometimes the trick is to change the direction of the attack rather than just continuing to run your head into a wall. Tank busters hunting down the Brenker. The Brenker are making a heroic dash for safety.
Germans are attacking our supply lines.
And a captain directly on the way from the field support truck, rather interesting. Infantry half-track slowly advancing. And looks like these chaps are popping into the half track as well. All good, all good.
Where to now, sir?
Oh, so very quiet. Steward on the way. Sappers also on the way. And looks like we're seeing an assault going on. Imminent. No tank busters inside, so question is, what is he up to? Lieutenant popping back into the brain carrier, advancing. Oh, so very quiet. Not rather of a slow start, I think. But then again, as the Panzer Elite, you have to be a bit careful about pressing too hard against the British, and of course you're not really supposed to make heavy assaults right off the bat, and it can easily end up badly, so instead he's sort of focusing on the maneuver, it seems like. And a mortar half-track, not a bad idea, and he has gone for tank destroyer doctrine. How do I notice this? Well, he's laying down mines, and he only has a Schwimmwagen, and well, the Schwimmwagen can lay down mines when you've gone for the tank destroyer doctrine, and there we go, Stuart light tank. And a lot of Panzer Grenadiers, nice squishy target, and there we go, looks like a cancer shot, and heavy losses for the Panzer Grenadiers, and Bren Gunners now hanging him out. Oh dear, this is going to end up badly for the Panzer Grenadiers. Bren Gunners are pretty accurate against retreating troops, can do some terrible damage, but apparently it looks like they'll make it out of there. But the infantry half-track, though, getting buttoned up, and the Stuart continues to hunt for prey. I doubt this half-track will make it out of there alive. Tank busters evacuating, lots of them in fact. Making a run for it, mortar half-track firing away, but at the same time he needs to get away. Run, or I suppose drive. Stuart crashing forwards past the wrecked half-track. Guns down one, tank buster, and straight into a mine. Jolly good show there, and tank busters advancing again. Looks like a third team of Panzer Schreck troops. Quite a few of those by this stage. And things are going to be a bit expensive for Mr. Gpo2, having lost a lot of Panzer Grenades. He's going to have to spend a lot of resources getting those reinforced. Looks like the tank busters continuing the hunt for the Stuart. Will they get a final shot? Perhaps no. Taking heavy losses as Bren Gunners move in to provide covering fire. The tank busters are forced away, but the mortar immediately opens up. Tank busters retreat, and incendiary round right there. That seems a bit awkward. Not going to help against a Stuart. Not unless the game had such that you can actually shoot through that hole in case the commander hatch was open. Then I suppose it could do something, but otherwise it's not really going to do anything. And looks like a large Panzer Grenadier force gets ready to advance once more. Another infantry half-track coming out. I can't help but feel he might be going for the wrong move right here. He perhaps instead should be going for some other armaments than just Panzer Grenadiers and infantry half-tracks. An anti-tank half-track at this stage, for example, wouldn't be a bad idea. Perhaps a Marder 3, perhaps a Panzer 4 or a Hotchkiss. How many tank busters does he have? 3, it would seem. Oh, well, some of them are just Panzer Grenadiers with a Panzer Schreck, but still quite a bit of anti-tank firepower to be directed against the British. And they only have one Stuart at this stage, although one Bren carrier as well. There we go, infantry half-track is ready. Captain sneaking about in the north. He is actually just the regular captain, since there's a flaw with the France 1944 skin which I use. And you actually have to sort of change him, otherwise the game will sort of act weird. In fact, it will get out of synchronicity if the captain appears, so you can't actually be on the field, I believe. My apologies, I probably should have mentioned that earlier, but I'm not entirely sure if I picked him out of the files or sort of packed up, or if you have to do that manually, but just in case, be aware. If something goes wrong with this skin, remove the captain if possible. His skin and just rely on the regular one, otherwise that should fix it. And looks like a Staghound has arrived at armored command. Staghound armored car, and the infantry half-track of course taking quite a bit of fire, and knocked out again, out of control, doesn't manage to do much. Panzer Schreck on the Staghound. 2 Panzer Schreck teams out on the field, taking cover behind the infantry half-track, but again forced to run the gauntlet. Rather unfortunate that they run straight through the British base. Further tank busters making a run for it. Not much luck for the forces of the Panzer Elite. Tank busters taking up position in the house, ready to open up on the field support truck, it would seem. Stuart advances, tank buster fires up on it. Panzer is leading a charge across through here. just Gpo2s again. I would rather recommend seeing something else than just these Panzer Grenadiers. As the Staghound and Stuart are able to deal with his Panzer Grenadiers with tank buster equipment rather reasonably, and looks like the Staghound made a nice jump there. Staghound doing quite a bit of damage, as the tank buster rockets, the Panzer Schrecks, don't really do much. Infantry section sneaking about, and tank buster swarms moving forwards. No, they're sending out a Panzer support command, and he's floating a lot of resources as well, this chap. Oh dear, again, don't float about resources. It's not necessarily good. Of course, in some situations you just end up naturally doing it, but again, as a rule, you shouldn't be doing so. It's rarely works to your advantage. And there we go, mortar half-track caught out in the open. 50 cal machine gun and 37mm gun, knocking out the mortar half-track, leaving it a wreck in the river bed. Gpo2 not having much luck at all. And now the Schwimmwagen running into the captain. The captain courageously firing his Webley revolver. Mindslake down by the Schwimmwagen. No, it decides not to. Tank busters trying to deal with this reconnaissance section, but taking rather huge losses without killing a single one. That's again a bad trait. You don't usually end up wanting to fight like that, because Panzer Grenadiers are rather costly to replace. So if you lose 2 or 3 or 4 and your opponent doesn't lose anyone, you've probably lost quite a bit. So try to avoid situations like that if possible. Panzer support command upgrade going on, and looks like a Firefly has been made ready. Carroll is on the field with the 17-pounder gun, ready to put the fear of the Commonwealth into the Germans. Jerry, the Kraut, the Hun, and a Panzer IV infantry support tank is getting ready. You'll of course have to see how that will work out. But not looking good for our friend in the SS of the 9th. In fact, I do believe it's time for the mid-game analysis. And well, what is the current situation? Well, it's not really looking good for our Panzer Elite friend. He spent a bit too long with just Panzer Grenadiers and sort of hoping that lobbing them up and making into full-on assaults would see him through. And some of you might have noticed that didn't really work, because it was sort of lacking in anything that could really absorb the damage from the Stuart and Staghound, and that's rather biting me in the arse at this stage. And of course now this German Firefly, his Panzer IV, might be running into some problems. Interesting thing is here, had he been perhaps, now that he'd gone for tank destroy, perhaps just laid down some tiller mines and some other bits and pretty much just expected the Allies to move in, perhaps take this point and do a bit here, you know, stay mobile, force the enemy to come to you. He might actually have done a bit better, but now the British are moving forwards very slowly. The Irish armoured guards doing what they do best, stealing things from the Germans. So question is, how will this work out? Will Gpo2 turn things around, or will Daule secure victory for King George and the Commonwealth? We'll see, we'll see. But Panzer IV on the way, probably from a Panzer replacement battalion for the Hermann Göring Panzer Division, which had some around there in Holland, and which did have some of the earlier Panzer IVs like this one. Looks like the Panzer Elite are heading southward. The Schwimmwagen seizing a bit of points there, laying down some mines. In the meanwhile, Stuart and Staghound on the move. Brenke sort of hanging about in the base, not really doing anything. And looks like he's gone for some repair upgrades for his sappers and is over-repairing his Firefly, quite interestingly. And looks like some hit a mine here before they began laying down a trench, quite unfortunate. Schwimmwagen coming under fire from other sappers with a minesweeper. Looks like several sapper teams for DauleDK, quite interesting. Will the Schwimmwagen make it out of there? Yes, indeed. Panzer Grenadiers are counter-attacking, and the sappers getting the devil out of there. In the center, they are setting up camp, getting ready to brew some tea and have some biscuits. While in the south, Panzer Grenadiers are advancing with Panzer Schreck and Gpo2 in hand. Will they succeed? And there we go, the Panzer IV moving forwards with its stubby 75mm gun, designed to support infantry. and not really take on tanks, in particular not tanks by 1944, 1945 standards. And there we go, the Firefly sneaking out behind the house, ready to ambush, and the Panzer IV gets hit, takes quite a bit of damage. And what? It advances right at the Firefly. What is it doing? Gpo2, what are you doing? And it's locking down right in front of the Firefly. Has he absolutely given up and just figured, well, I might as well just try to kill some British pigs before it goes up in flames rather than trying to get the devil out of there? I can't help but feel that's a bit of a mismanaged idea. Panzer grenades with tank Panzer tracks getting killed rather heavily. They need to retreat. Stuart, though, gets knocked out, but at what cost? A Panzer IV and a few Panzer Grenadiers. This is not really good. And meanwhile, they are pushing through here in the north, and looks like he's gotten the Hetzer at this stage and is now trying to use that to salvage things. But will it be enough? Will it be enough? I'm not entirely confident of that.
Attention, the enemy advances.
Hetzers, by this stage of the war, I'm still not entirely sure they actually managed to make it into Holland, and they probably would have been around the time of the Ardennes, but not Holland.
Losing ground.
By this stage, though, they were serving on the Eastern Front, partly with the Germans, partly with the Hungarians.
The enemy is weakening even now.
But I'm not entirely sure those on the Western Front had it quite yet.
Forward supply lines are broken.
I believe they were mostly originally used partly to sort of support Panzer Grenadier divisions, Volksgrenadier divisions, but also to form their own Panzerjäger Abteilungs. Well, they did a decent job as well. Quite an amazing little vehicle based on the Panzer 38T, the sort of same basis as the Marder 3 and other bits.
Enemy unit eradicated.
Knocking out the lieutenant most heroically, most courageously. A small victory for the fatherland right there. Although the Czechoslovakians actually decided had a tendency of adding in a small sort of faults which were hard to discover, including one which actually meant that if the driver's sights were hit, the driver would be blinded. Seems rather vicious to me, but there you go. The Czechs weren't exactly grateful for German occupation of Czechoslovakia.
Lines are broken. We have territory cut off from supply.
Still, it was quite an amazing little vehicle. In particular, there's a report from one small company, I believe of 13 Hetzers or so, which reported knocking out several IS-2 tanks, that is Joseph Stalin tanks, the big heavy Russian ones, where they knocked out several of those without actually taking a single loss. And Firefly firing away at the Hetzer. Hetzer not looking a bit good about that. Has to be careful. Sappers moving about. Looks like that could actually be a second Firefly. Is that so, Mr. Dane? Yes, indeed it is.
Tank upgrade complete, Commander.
And looks like the Hetzer is on the hunt for the Stankout, but decides otherwise. Might want to pull back. Yes, indeed. Turns about. Good, good. Little Hetzer. The Hetzer was sort of originally intended as a sort of even cheaper variant of the Stug, and that is an assault gun, but rather due to jurisdictional problems with the artillery, which actually had control over basically all assault guns, it was designated as a tank destroyer. Although in the hands of the Hungarians, they basically just used it as an assault gun in their assault gun battalions, alongside the Stugs and their own sort of assault guns, which was called the Shriny. I'm not entirely sure. I don't speak Hungarian or Magyar, whatever it's called. British troops advancing. Firefly opening up on the Hetzer. The Hetzer not really built to take Firefly. Hits to the front. Pulls back. Fires away at the Bren guns advancing. Shot bounces off. Quite to the relief of the Hetzer crew, I suspect. Hetzer taking quite a bit of damage. Infantry troops pinned down. Staghound advances, and another Staghound in the north having knocked out a Schwimmark also moves in. Hetzer rather exposed, oh dear, and knocked out by the Firefly. The Hetzer is lost. The Panzerjäger is no more, and again floating manpower. I'm not entirely keen on that, but let's return to DauleDK. What is Mr. Daule up to? Not much, it seems. It looks like he's finally going for a Panzerjäger command. About bloody time. And still, though, is holding off to most of half of the map. Apparently, Mr. DauleDK is not feeling too confident in marching forwards either. Looks like, in fact, he's lost an infantry section, so apparently Mr. GPO must have done something right. Plus, that's do it, but otherwise, Mr. GPO has been suffering most of the losses, while DauleDK has actually been able to get away pretty decently with minimal losses. Officer ready. Yes, indeed, you are ready, my friend. Several staghounds sort of hanging about. Part of the cavalry, I suppose. While the Fireflies sort of create an imposing sight watching over this entire area. Commander scanning the horizon. Looking for any Jerry's advancing while the glorious Panzer Grenadiers making for one more assault. Although at this stage I'm pretty sure they're suspecting that the commander isn't quite sure of what to do. Nonetheless, they follow their orders. Crossing through here. Whatever do they intend, I don't know. But I imagine we shall find out. Looks like the Panzer command might be flashing or not. Looks like they're going through here, taking what points they can there, in fact. Of course, forcing DauleDK to shift his forces once more. And mines, my goodness, he's actually used his sappers to lay down barbed wire and mines. This is quite rare, but certainly not a bad idea. And getting rifle grenades. Oh dear, this will be a very up battle for the Panzer Grenadiers, who are now taking quite a bit of fire. And there we go, forced retreat, hitting another mine. Oh, the inhumanity, the horror. And the staghounds leap upon the Panzer Grenadiers like frenzied wolves. And the Panzer Grenadiers run for their sorry little lives as the British lads continue onwards. Whatever shall he do? Gpo2, who's apparently going for Panthers. Will be interesting to see how he will manage that. British slowly getting out of there once more, not feeling too keen on advancing across the river, but still a bit up here in the north. I suspect DauleDK is rather feeling himself confident in his ability to deal with whatever the 9th SS Division right here can muster against him. Of course, the Panthers might prove to be a bit of a surprise, and interesting enough, he's actually not used a single command point.
300 points.
And let us speed up things a bit. Small engagement right here. Point taken off. Once more, bit of harassment. More solid engagement going on right here. British troops hiding up behind the wrecked Hetzer. Staghound firing away. Tank busters moving in. Mine hit somewhere. Lots of Panzer tricks hitting absolutely nothing, and there we go. Panthers have arrived. Panzerkampfwagen 5 advancing forwards, and what remained for the 9th SS Division's Panther are moved in, and oh, slight oddity right there in fraps. And looks like the Panthers could finish off those staghounds. There's very little to actually stop them besides those Fireflies, although one gets buttoned up. Main gun destroyed on one staghound, and it makes it out of there. Other one takes damage. British troops, Bren gunners, getting repeatedly blasted to bits by the Panzer forced into a full retreat. Staghound making a run for it. Panthers advancing. Fireflies firing straight nice here from this overwatch position, blasting away at the Panthers as they advance through the rather hard to traverse ground with full of muck and water. And looks like he's gone for Royal Canadian Artillery rather interestingly, although this Panther needs to get out of there. Firefly hits, and the Panther just gets blasted into bits. My goodness. Pull your armor out of there. You don't want to suffer like that. And looks like a Panzer Grenadier team tried to advance, but ran straight into a mine. My goodness, again, actually using his sappers for mines. This is certainly nice to see, very refreshing. Most people just use sappers as a sort of delivery methods for Piats, rather than just, actual sapper, actual engineer units to lay down defenses, mines, and all other sorts of nice goodie. In fact, right here, another sapper team. He's actually using 3 sapper teams, and of course, one thing to note is actually sappers that are not bad as infantry either. They're about as sort of the same as British infantry, in fact. They just can't get sort of British infantry weapons like the Bren guns, rifle grenades, and so on, but they can still actually fight pretty decently. So keep that in mind, gentlemen. And tank busters getting hit to bits by the tank, but Fireflies were just firing away and clearing out an entire team. That was rather tragic. Again, not entirely good management by Gpo2 at this stage. Let us speed things up again. But at least he saved both of his Panthers. Schwimmwagen ready as well. We have a little points left for Gpo2 repairing his Panthers. And moving out once more. Schwimwagen is spotting mines, the Panthers clearing them out with the force of their guns, and looks like Mr. DauleDK is blowing quite a bit of manpower, but that might have to do something when he's not really got much to use them on, lacking the sort of population to actually use it, I suppose. Panthers advancing, Fireflies and lots of British troops now with Piats also. Quite a bit of firepower being directed against the Panzer grenades of the 9th SS. The Panthers doing what they can, but they get buttoned up and the Fireflies just fall upon them.
Forces are trying to overrun one of our sectors.
This Panther looks like to be in a lot of trouble. Panzer Grenadiers trying to provide support, but they can't really move in due to the sort of heavy presence of British firepower. And looks like one Panther will be lost despite best attempts. Main gun destroyed. Oh dear, and the Panther is lost. Panther is down. Panther is no more. Panther is styrt. Or styrt. And the last one keeps firing away while the Panther is right covering fire. But the Fireflies are simply too much for the Panthers. Partly because they can't get off a shot. Heavy damage to the Firefly, but the Panthers are not the ones doing good. And it looks like, oh dear, Panzer Grenade team is lost. Panther covering the last one as he retreats. GG from Gpo2 and probably GG from DauleDK. There we go. A loss for the 9th SS as they did their best, but sadly it was not enough. So there you go. Well, what can we learn from this? Well, here the problem was sort of for Mr. Gpo2. Well, basically he was sort of stuck in one mode for too long. He just went for a lot of Panzer Grenadiers, some half-tracks which he quickly lost, and then he sort of took too long in actually moving beyond that. I mean, he could have used the mines a bit more aggressively, he could have been more mobile, a bit more harassing, he could have gone for armoured cars, martyr fleets, anti-tank half-tracks, something, but sadly he never went for that until it was much too late, in which case he got a Panzer IV and then immediately lost it. I mean, there seemed to be a bit of problems right here, and a funny thing is, I do believe this chap is around level 14 or 16. I believe that was told by DauleDK. But again, I mean, in some sense I can see how it worked, but in this case, of course, it was rather nicely countered by DauleDK, who rather went on rather aggressively with the British, which is probably more aggressive than you're sort of used to, using the Bren carrier and the infantry section to sort of move in and do a bit of harassment right there. Very nasty move, and it certainly paid off quite nicely. Otherwise, so I mean, again, Gpo2 perhaps need to work better on his unit preservation, stop throwing in half-tracks like that, and perhaps needed to be a bit more mobile. But there you go. I hope you enjoyed this fight. If you did, why not subscribe or tell your friends, and if you didn't, well, why not send in a replay of your own. This is Imperial Dane saying cheers.